All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our Generating ROI with Embedded Analytics webinar featuring Allbound. My name is Josh Prento. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Looker. I'll be your host and moderator for today's webinar. With me, we have Ryan Sherman, who's the VP of Product at Allbound. We're going to be discussing how Allbound successfully leveraged Looker's embedded analytics solution to build their Channel Insights product. We're just about to start, but I want to go over a few quick housekeeping items before we get going today. First, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So to ask a question to our presenter, just type it in the Q&A box and click Submit. We'll do our best to answer all the questions at the end of our presentation. And finally, the presentation is being recorded, so we'll send out the recording after it's over. So with that, let me hand it over to Ryan to introduce himself and walk through the agenda and go through his content. Over to you, Ryan.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Josh. So as Josh said, my name is Ryan Sherman. I'm the VP of Product here at Allbound, and I've been here for 5 years now, since the very beginning days. So the Channel Insights have been one of the most exciting things that we've gotten to work on here at Allbound, and has kind of changed the direction of how we envision the future of PRM. So we're pretty excited to get started here. So just quick items here on the agenda. So first, we're going to discuss how you can build a case for business insights and decide if using business insights is something that's going to help you and accelerate your business. We're going to take a look at why you would choose an embedded analytics platform. This is really going to be a build versus buy scenario. And then we'll talk about the key criteria to consider when evaluating various solutions that we've been through. Then we'll talk about specific ideas on how to generate ROI through your data and what's worked for us. And then also how we're able to create a competitive advantage using our Channel Insights demo. Sorry if I have a little frog in my throat today. All right. So I just want to first off tell you guys a little bit about Allbound, just a quick little plug for us here, and then I promise it's going to be all about data and analytics. But Allbound is one of the fastest growing PRM companies in the world, which is a partner relationship management platform. So we specialize in helping companies to automate, track, and manage partnerships in really meaningful ways. So our platform helps to onboard and train partners and enable them handle deal registration, but more importantly, we help them measure that level of success and make it even easier to scale those partner programs. So that's really what we've been focusing on with our Channel Insights platform. All right, so first off, we're going to talk about building a case for Channel Insights. So as any good product person, when you're looking at what the next thing that you're going to focus on building, some of the key areas are, you want to make sure that you're doing something that's going to help close deals at a faster rate, so increase that win ratio, find ways to increase your overall ACV, so increase that total contract value, while at the same time you want to decrease customer churn, and also increase your own operational efficiency. And in addition, how can we get more money from existing customers, create upsell opportunities, negative churn, and just overall deliver a lot more customer value and kind of increase the stickiness of the product. So that's always a tall order. So if we can build out a new platform or new product line that can hit on a couple of those at a time, it's fantastic and gets everyone excited. But when we can build a platform and a new module like Channel Insights and actually affect every single one of those scenarios, it's the holy grail in the world of product management and just, I think, SaaS in general. So we really we're taking a look at, how we can have the biggest impact for our customers and how we can help them better use Allbound. So from a customer success perspective, we're always looking for ways to teach our customers what kind of things they can do within the platform, where they're successful, where they're not seeing success, and being able to duplicate and say, hey, here's the areas that you're finding success, so how do you replicate these? But of course, our touch points with lots of customers and limited numbers of customer success managers, we just weren't able to provide that kind of consistent value, and we wanted our customers to be able to explore these answers, these questions themselves, and find answers to them on a regular one-off basis, so they can find ultimately better success with their platform and ultimately better success within their channel programs. So we started trying to figure out what was it that they really needed and what were the questions they were asking. we started off with just basic reports that I think, everybody starts off with, static reports that just say, hey, here's how many people took a specific action in a specific set of time. And that was a great starting point and created some baseline visibility, but it didn't really help them answer the question. And one of the biggest problems is, they couldn't analyze that data. They couldn't look at it in different ways. They couldn't complete cohort analysis. They had to create these reports themselves, like on a one-off basis, and it wasn't really a repeatable process on there. So we wanted to be able to serve up some dashboards that they can get some key insights, measure their trajectory over time, and get more value out of the platform.
Hey, Ryan, could I ask a quick question on that?
Yep.
In terms of the, sort of the customer and what they were, it sort of sounded like they were maybe frustrated or couldn't do, everything they wanted to do. How well did they articulate what they were trying to do back to you? Like what kind of drove we're not meeting their needs, we need to do something different, something more?
So that's a great question, Josh. Thanks for asking that. And honestly, one of the issues is that people weren't actually asking for more. Because I think that people are so used to just saying, hey, well, this is my limited data. I can export this into an Excel spreadsheet. I can create a pivot table. And I think as I started digging in and asking people about their process and how they're getting at this data and how they're using the data, I was horrified, frankly, that this was the process that people found acceptable, and they weren't even raising their hand saying this was a need until, and none of our competitors are really doing a similar thing. So everyone is doing the, hey, here's your static report. You can see a 30, 60, 90, 1-year view, and that's it. So you can't, compare your data or see how one group is comparing against another group. And hey, let me look at people that took this specific action and see what the end result was. So I think it was actually kind of a sad state of affairs, to be honest, that people were okay with doing that, but they weren't really okay with doing it, because when I asked them at what frequency they were doing that, it's like, well, once a quarter we try and dig in and see what's going on. And, if you're going to have any level of success, you can't be looking at one quarter at a time. You got to be looking on a daily basis to see what worked and be able to do, create a culture of experimentation to say, hey, if we change this, how does that affect the end result? How does that affect the outcome? So I think what the channel insights has allowed our customers to do is to create a more outcome-oriented approach, as opposed to just looking at, output, like, hey, we did this, we should pat ourselves on the back. It's more, hey, we did this that this have the net result that we wanted to? And if it did, let's do more of it. And if it didn't, then let's figure out what else we can do that will have that, that ultimate desired effect.
All right, great.
All right, so the next step, once we kind of decided that we made a case for business insights, we said, yes, we need to deliver some more key information to our customers. We need to give them access to be able to clearly understand and articulate which actions that happened within the platform led to the ultimately best business outcomes. So then the next step was figuring out, how do we deliver this? So of course, in the eye of saving money, we thought, can we build this ourselves? So we started looking at some embedded analytics platforms, and you look at prices and you start asking your CEOs for funding, and people look and say, well, we've got this great engineering team. Can't we just build this? So we certainly looked at if we should build this and what that effort would take. And what we came back at was that it would decelerate our product roadmap by about 6 months. But the end result of that 6-month effort was not suddenly we had replaced Looker in a 6-month time period, because I think that if we could do that in a 6-month time period and create something that was as robust, a true embedded analytics platform like Looker, then we would actually be in the embedded analytics space and not in the PRM space. So it turns out our engineering talents did not lie in visualizing data, but rather in creating data and collecting that data, and then being able to present it in a manner that allowed our customers to actually take some actionable insights from that data. So we were looking at what is the total cost of ownership, what's the total cost to build versus maintain. And as you look at that initial investment to say, hey, it would take us 6 months, we think, to get to a certain point. And honestly, from an engineering perspective, when you look at something that's as big of a project as that, 6 months out, you're normally at least 50% off. So that 6 months quickly becomes 9 months, which gets pushed from there. But you don't get to just build it and be done with it. So you not only are building it, now you're also maintaining it. So we didn't want to be responsible for building and maintaining this visualization engine because it would take away from our overall product roadmap, being able to deliver on other areas that are creating value for our customers. And it would take away from our focus on the data. So we really needed to be able to accelerate our roadmap so we can increase that time to value. Because if it took us 6 months longer to be able to deliver this, that was another 6 months that we didn't get that uplift in revenue, the upsell potential, the reduced churn, and to deliver that immediate value to our customers. So we really wanted to, kind of keep our internal resources focused on our core competencies. And I think prepping your data is a much bigger task than most people think. So I think especially as you productize things like we do, we have all of our customer data has generally the same schema, but you can have very different data within there. So we were able to focus our efforts, since we didn't have to build the engine itself, on the data and the transformation and normalizing that data in a way that made it easy to give these analytics and insights out to our customers in a very broad method. So, creating analytics for a single customer, single use case, or for an internal use case is significantly easier than it is to productize something for various customers that have different data, different partner programs. So we needed to create something that was easily productized and configurable as opposed to customizable. So we also wanted this to be something that was simple for our customers to use, as well as simple for our engineering team to be able to deploy.
So Ryan, this is actually a topic that comes up a lot with our customers around, the notion of building their own data products, whether it's a SaaS company or whether it's an end user organization that's looking to monetize data or build an application. So the DIY sort of aspect comes up a lot. And I think you hit on kind of both of these, but, there's the notion of, well, we are really smart people. We have engineering resources. We can build it ourselves. The other half of it is, kind of the free or low cost aspect of it. Like, I'm not going to pay for a commercial solution if I can use open source technology to build it out. What's the I mean, that's certainly perception, but you touched on some of the reality, but can you based on your experience, can you highlight some of the actual kind of costs that that people need to think about, when it comes to just looking at licensing?
Sure. So I was going to actually touch on that in some of our next 2 slides about the key criteria to consider when you're comparing different solutions. But I think to your point, Josh, you talked about, you do some sort of open source system where you can, use that within your internal application and build it out, do the whole DIY process. So that was certainly, this alluring thing is that, hey, if we make this investment, even if it slows down our roadmap, when we get to, 5,000 customers, 10,000 customers, is that what is the return on that investment going to be? So I think that, people look at the long term and think, okay, gosh, this is really going to be a whole lot cheaper. But the problem that you'll find is that in reality, if you take the DIY route, it becomes something you build. And when it's not one of your core competencies, you get some engineers that make it work and it works okay, but you don't have the advantage of the flexibility of how Looker is built, or a lot of other embedded analytics platform. But we're obviously very partial to Looker because we've had great success with them. But it's the bigger the system gets, the more you have to scale it. So then you also have to manage it from a DevOps perspective moving forward, and it kind of becomes that thing that doesn't grow with the rest of your application. So you have this kind of dated analytics solution while the rest of your product is advancing, and you don't have the time, energy, and resources to put into the actual visualization engine. So the end result of that is that your engineers say, well, this is fine. And so when you say, great, can I do this? And how can I make it customizable so a customer can dig in and take the next level and explore deeper and create their own looks within here? That's something that you just end up not doing. So I think some of the feedback that we got from this, and this is something that I was actually slightly nervous about when we proposed a solution to the analysts that we were reviewing with. I thought we were actually going to get dinged for saying, hey, you just white labeled the solution and, you didn't build this from scratch yourself. And it was actually quite the opposite. So on Nicole Forrester, they gave us great props and they said, wow, when you partner with a company like Looker that was just acquired by Google, it actually shows that you have your customers' best interests in mind and that you're willing to make a significant investment in this as opposed to, hey, we've slapped together this DIY solution for you and here you go. So the feedback that we got was overwhelmingly positive. We also thought, gosh, we really want to white label this instead of having that nifty little Powered by Looker logo on the bottom. But the feedback from our customers as well was, wow, Looker has this great reputation and Allbound has this great reputation. So it's fantastic to see that Allbound is also making the investment in Looker. And, from our customer perspective, they understand what the cost licensing is if they were to create the solution themselves and the amount of time investment as well. So for them to be able to just say, gosh, I could have just purchased Looker myself and done this myself and done whatever I wanted, they understand that they don't have the economies of scale at play like we do. So our user licensing model is obviously significantly cheaper than a single customer buying it for their own internal use case. And it also increases their time to value and gets our experience and expertise in having done this for hundreds and hundreds of other channel partner programs to understand, hey, here's the key criteria and key metrics that you should be looking at, and allows us to take the experience that we've gotten from working with all these premium companies across the world. Some of the fastest growing SaaS companies in the world are using the Allbound platform. So that's what I really love about Looker and using this embedded analytics solution, and I think why it makes more sense for our customers to have us preparing this for them as opposed to them trying to repeat this process on their own.
Right. And I get just one other kind of question on this. When you mentioned the sort of the surrounding tasks when it comes to productizing something, I'm not sure that people give a lot of thought to that, particularly when they're thinking of DIY, right? There's, from a support perspective, you're building a product, you bring it to market, you have to support it. That's obviously, a load on your resources. The benefit of having, or, one of the byproducts of having a successful product that customers like and are using is that they ask for more, right? So I'm assuming you're getting feature requests and enhancement requests from your customers. How do you handle that, and how much time is that, right? Because that goes into sort of the ownership of an application that you brought to market.
Right. So the nice thing about using an embedded analytics platform is it makes it a lot easier to make those changes because it's designed to do that, right? So Looker works really, really well. One of the things we love about it is that it will allow us to parameterize our database connections. So as opposed to having all of our customer data in some giant database, it allows us just to pass on a parameter of which customer database are we going to access. It's much more secure in that method. And so we're looking at a much smaller subset of data, which makes our queries much faster. So that becomes a much more difficult thing in sort of a DIY process. But when customers do get in there and take a look at the data, of course, everyone says, well, gosh, in my partner program or my specific instance, I'd really like to see this level of information. So what we're really focusing on doing is how do we make it easy for customers to ask whatever questions that they want. And one of those things is how do we allow them to segment data. So we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up in how you kind of focus on your data and how you can segment it and make it easy. Because one of the key benefits of using an analytics platform is that, as opposed to just a simple static report, is that you get to ask all kinds of questions and create some different cohorts so you can compare those cohorts to one another. See, compared to this group of power users, say, or users that have completed all these specific actions, or, within the context of Allbound, show me users that have completed these, 3 key learning tracks, and then let's track their performance. Was their ACV higher? Was their win rate higher? Was their, average time to first deal activation higher? So you can start seeing what actions actually led to those best results. And then when we get feedback from customers, we share that feedback with other customers and say, hey, is this also a similar need? And then we try and find ways that we can productize that across the board. But the other opportunity with Looker, which was an embedded analytics platform in general, is that it also offers opportunity for professional services. So in a DIY model, we say, great, we can read from our current database, and that's just fantastic. But when a customer comes to us and says, this is fantastic, but I really need to pull in some other data source, Now suddenly we have a professional services opportunity where we can increase revenue and overall contract value and say, that's fantastic. We can easily hook up an additional data source for you and pull it into and create a custom dashboard just for you. And now we have the framework to do that. So it doesn't become this custom engineering effort. It just becomes something that we can spit out very, very quickly and create something that is customized for an individual customer. So again, we try and productize our offering across the board and fulfill the needs of 95% of our users. But when you do have that, gosh, I need to pull my Salesforce data from here at Looker, we can just connect to that database, pull it in, create a custom dashboard, merge in with some of our other our other models that we've already created in there, and very quickly provide a custom solution to our clients.
Awesome. Thanks.
So I guess the next step, right, is, hey, you decided, you made a case for business insights. You think, hey, this is going to be a great win for your product, your platform. You made a case to say you decided to to buy versus build, which is probably the smart decision if you actually want to do this in the best method possible. So we're going to talk a little bit about the key criteria when you're evaluating different solutions. And I think this is really important when you talk about productizing something. We looked at a lot of different solutions out there, and I won't drop any specific names. I encourage you all to read the Gartner reports and read the G2 crowd reviews. Obviously, which you would do for any single product. But one of the things that we looked at, that it wasn't until we had had experience with a couple other platforms that actually changed some of the criteria that we would look at second time around that we didn't think was that important. So I think one of those areas is customer experience. So you'll look at a lot of other platforms and it's like, gee, this is really great. I have a widget in here. I can click and drag around and dig into the widget, and it seemed like it was really advanced and it had a lot more in-depth functionality. Our experience when we rolled this out to customers was not fantastic. Even our sales team that were internally trained, when there was too much functionality, they didn't understand what they were doing with it. So they might have clicked into something accidentally. It filtered the whole screen of their dashboard. Now they get no result. They think it's broken. They're not quite clear that when they clicked something, it was actually linking to a filter, and it's filtering down the rest of their dashboard view. We started answering a lot of phone calls. So it was not a super intuitive interface with some other solutions that we looked at and kind of did some beta testing with customers. So one of the things that sold us on Looker was that the interface was very clean. There was not a whole bunch of stuff going on and 10 different ways from Sunday to filter down these individual widgets, which made for a much more seamless experience with our customers. And it was easy to use. We showed our sales team one time, and I've never gotten another question since. Our CS team doesn't have to field questions about, how do I view this? How do I filter down the specific content? So the overall customer experience is super important, not just from being able to deliver the best experience to your customers, but also increasing your own operational efficiency, so you don't have to focus on an increased level of support. The whole concept of our Channel Insights platform is that we wanted customers to be able to get their own insights in self-service, increase our own efficiency, and also simultaneously increasing our customers' efficiency. So that was a really, really important aspect that we hadn't fully taken into account before. So I think that, as you're exploring solutions, more features does not necessarily lead to more value. So it's making sure that you're providing the features that people need and making it very clear what insights they can gather from the information. So that was a really, really key lesson for us to learn that took us a couple times to get right. The other area is the time to value. So obviously, the faster you can get your product to market, the faster you can start seeing the benefits of everything, and the faster you can start creating extra value for customers and improving their overall experience. So there's a lot of things that we didn't quite consider in the time to value.
Looks like Ryan might have lost connection. We'll give him a second to dial back in here.
Hey, Josh, can you hear me now?
Yep. Hey, Ryan.
Sorry, I feel like I'm in a Sprint commercial. Can you hear me now?
Hear you loud and clear.
Speaking of time to value. Right, so the onboarding and implementation time, I think basically every single vendor that we talk to, claims like, we're super fast. It's only going to take you 30 days to onboard and implement. That's something you definitely need to take into consideration when you're evaluating solutions. But so part of that is also going to be on your own data. So the longer your implementation is with the platform itself, the analytics solution, the less time you're going to have to focus on your data. I think that everybody thinks their data is in a slightly better place than it probably is. We found that not to be true. As we started running through, we're like, oh gosh, our data is really not normalized. We need to flatten things out. We need to create a much better structure. We need to backfill and augment and add more data so we can add more value into the analytics that we're creating on there. So part of it is always going to be on you and the time it takes to prep your own data, and that's going to be true no matter what solution that you look at. But the onboarding time of the solution itself is going to be very key. So with Looker, we were able to do a very, I think it was called like a rapid implementation or something. So we had a POC. We did like a week-long POC. We signed a contract. We had a kickoff call. In the middle of the kickoff call, the POC was so easy for us to implement. We did an alpha release to a few key customers in the middle of our kickoff call, which I think probably freaked out our customer success and implementation people at Looker, but all was good. So it made it really, really fast. And I think one of the key things to look at for time to value is, what does that implementation process look like? And what does the documentation look like? So with Looker, for instance, when we're in there, creating new LookMLs, which is the markup language for Looker, as soon as you started typing something, it would tell you in the little sidebar and say, oh gosh, this is the parameter you're working with. Here's all the various options on it, and here's some more extensive documentation if you need more information. It wouldn't let us save things with an error that was gonna cause an issue. We could have a development environment versus a production environment, so we didn't have to be super careful when we were testing things to worry it was going to break what we already had out in production. So from a developer standpoint, I feel like a lot of other solutions out there were more end user focused and not developer focused. And one of the things that we really came to appreciate with Looker, and that ultimately made us make this buying decision, was the level of ease for the development effort. So it was very, very developer friendly. The docs were not only complete but accurate, which is not always the case. And I think that the other important thing with Looker was, from a time to value standpoint, is that it was a hosted solution, which I was kind of against in the beginning, but the amount of time that it saved us from not having to manage our own, just the DevOps environment alone, was significant. We had put in months of time with some other platforms we're trying to launch with to try and get just our DevOps environment set up, and it became a nightmare and one other piece to manage. So I'm sure that everyone else out there that's listening to this call right now can appreciate that, managing our own DevOps environments and, making sure we have a highly available system, monitoring performance, all that stuff takes so much time and energy, and it's not something we get, we get kudos for from our customers. It's just something that's expected to happen, as opposed to, look how great you do DevOps. They just expect it to happen, and they only notice when it's broken. So taking on something else that is going to take away development effort just allows us to, take away from our core competencies and being able to actually affect our roadmap. So that time to value, I can't understate how important that is. So some of the next areas that we kind of touched on a little bit was security, scalability, and flexibility, as well as the total cost of ownership. So total cost of ownership is going to be a little bit longer rant, so we'll focus on the security, scalability, and flexibility. I think as you're shopping for a solution and you're taking a look and saying, like, gosh, how do I want to do this? And you just generally assume that, all the big competitors out there are created equal, and they're all going to be secure and scalable and performant, and that is actually just not the case. So as we started looking at some different solutions that maybe combined all customer data into a single unified source, suddenly that becomes a really big query when you're trying to query against data for hundreds or even thousands of customers. So you have to start breaking that down and breaking it apart into smaller chunks so that it can be more performant. But then you have to figure out, how are you going to manage all these various chunks of data? How are you going to shard out your database? How are you going to provide the right level of row-level security to make sure that you don't have data bleeding from one customer instance to another customer instance? Is it secure? Is it SOC 2 compliant? How does it perform at scale? And not just how does it perform at scale, how does it perform at scale under significant load? And how does it perform at scale based on how often you refresh the data? So is it super performant, but you can only refresh the data once a day, or is it super performant and you can refresh the data every hour? I'm not sure about everyone else, but our customers definitely expect more than an hour at a time. They want more real-time results. And with Looker, we definitely got that. We've not had a single performance issue. And I think the flexibility aspect is also something that comes in, and this is one of the key components of an analytics platform like Looker compared to a DIY project, is what happens when you say, hey, right now I'm on an RDS database with a MySQL-powered engine, but gosh, we've really decided that we want to go Redshift or Snowflake or pull in data from a different source. So typically you would have to rewrite all of your queries, but when you're using a platform like Looker that's data source agnostic, you can switch your data source and still use the same queries, not have to write everything. And it also keeps all of your developers writing all the queries in the same exact format. So it creates a method around things, so you make sure you get accurate and consistent results, which is super important and makes it way more flexible. So when I move forward, I don't have to make decisions about, gosh, I can't make a significant database change that might have a major impact on another area of our business, because I would have to rewrite all of our visualization queries to do this. So suddenly you end up locked into a decision and with a lot more technical debt on your hands. So instead, you can make the right decision for your company, switch your data sources, and move forward. So I think that's definitely a key benefit of using a analytics platform.
Ryan, a question on the evaluation. Were there aspects of the evaluation that you found more challenging to do on your own, or to do an apples-to-apples comparison across the solutions you were looking at? I'm just wondering about things like scalability and performance. Like those things, obviously you need a full set of data, you need a full solution. Like, how did you handle that aspect of the evaluation?
So being able to look at the scalability of that from a performance perspective is a pretty difficult thing, really, because if you have like a self-hosted version that might seem a little bit more secure because, hey, everything's right within your own like AWS environment, whatever the case may be, it becomes a lot more difficult. You have to write a bunch of tests that you can run against your database and look at concurrency and amount of load and refresh rates to kind of get an estimation of what you need to do. And that kind of goes into the total cost of ownership as well, when you're looking at other platforms that are charging based on user license in addition to server licenses, plus the hosting cost because you're self-hosting it, the cost of your DevOps team to manage all that, developers to manage the complexities of all that, when to spin up another node, when to handle all those other pieces. So it becomes really, really complex, and it's a very difficult thing to test. So it's actually easier for us to test with Looker because we just hit the database with a bunch of fake users from some testing scripts. The database, everything was managed by the Looker side, and I didn't have to do anything. So the results were very easy. I didn't dig that far into the POC on that side of things with Looker, to be honest, because I didn't need to. So with some other solutions, as we're doing POCs, we were hitting limits very, very quickly. And it was like, well, gosh, you just need a bigger server, or you need to split your data into, multiple servers. Well, that's fantastic, but you're paying additional server licenses for every single new server that you're spinning up. Plus, you're also paying for the cost of those servers. And if those servers are, say, Windows servers versus Linux servers, the Windows servers are twice as much and more complicated and just more error prone. So suddenly, it also becomes very difficult to predict your level of pricing, because you're not just charging on a straight up user model. It's, well, gosh, I have to pay for user licenses, but once I'm not getting the performance that I need and I have to spin up another server, you're going to hit with the other cost of that server just to have one more customer on it. So you're always in this flux of your average price per user is going up and down depending on if you just had a server, or if you just add a new server that's not full now, or if you have every single server fully maxed out. So you kind of have these hills and valleys when it comes to pricing. So it makes it very difficult to keep very clear and predictable pricing and understand what it is. And if you're trying to generate ROI on your data, I think that makes it significantly more difficult, because you don't understand what that pricing is. And really, if you're just paying a per user license model and a fixed server license model, then you're also not taking into account the economies of scale. So some place like Looker, you're paying a per user license, but that fee obviously goes down significantly as you start increasing your user license rate. So you get economies of scale, and that just generates significantly more ROI when your cost goes down.
Just to follow up on I guess that, and just the broader topic of evaluation, like how much did you rely? I know you did a lot of it yourself, and with firsthand knowledge of the technology, looking at things like pricing and all of that. But how much do you have any advice around leveraging either third-party resources? I know you mentioned Gartner and G2 a while ago. Did you talk to any customers who were building solutions to glean some insights from them?
We did talk to a few customers the second time around. Honestly, I think that one of the mistakes that we made the first time is, it can be very time consuming to do some of these POCs. So I think that people get a little gun shy. And had we done 2 side-by-side comparison POCs, I think that we would have identified Looker as a clear winner early on. But because actually the POC that we did with Looker was very quick and very fast. The documentation was really clear, and it made it really easy to connect. We didn't have to, take a machine image and load it up into our own system and spin up servers and get DevOps people involved. So it was a lot less painful. But our first POC took so much time and energy and resources, and we thought, well, it's going to be difficult for any other competitors as well. So we just assumed that we didn't have that level of time, and we wanted to, we're hungry to get that time to value. But had we taken the time to do at least 2 POCs, I think we would have really found the key differences, and it would have been extremely noticeable. So I guess that would be one of my major takeaways is, to Josh's point, talk to customers and do 2 side-by-side POC comparisons. Because when your developers are in their one POC, they might want to jump off the balcony. Another POC, they might be really, really happy. Does that kind of answer your question there, Josh?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just reading another question, actually, that I guess I'll ask now. I was going to save it for the end. But
sure.
In terms of sort of timeline, or, kind of how long it took to deploy, I know you've talked about the speed of deploying with Looker, but what's just kind of specifically like, just can you give some guidance around how long to expect to sort of have something up and running from start to finish, assuming you do all the right things when it comes to evaluation and put the options through their paces?
Sure. I think that's probably a really broad question. So that's going to change, depending on the state of your data. So our first time around, our first stab at this, our data was in a, you don't realize like, wow, like as you're trying to create the solution and create this, productized version, you have to normalize your data down, transform it, make sure that, hey, in a deal registration, one partner's putting in 3M for 3 million, another one's writing out 3 million, and another one's actually using, all the proper integers for 3 million. So you're like, oh gosh, like how do I normalize this across the board? So when we did the Looker POC, our database was already normalized. We had a nice read replica set up, so we didn't have to do any of that initial work. I mean, Looker could have connected into our existing databases, but we didn't want that to impact actual application performance. So we're trying to, keep our customers and performance and availability top of mind. So we created some read replicas, which was, honestly a very simple task. Normalize our data, and from that process, it was 2 weeks to create a week really to create our first dashboard. A few weeks in to create kind of our first 3 dashboards. And I think that, the sooner you can create value for your customers, do it and release it and get value and get feedback, because what you're building, what you have in your mind, especially when you're trying to productize something, that might have very different data and different results for different types of customers. The sooner you can get that feedback and get out in the wild, the better. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of other tools that you can use out there. If you don't have the ability to properly segment your customer data, there's companies out there like Segment that are really great at helping you segment your data. There's tools like Fivetran out there that can help you, handle the whole ETL transformation side, so you don't have to write all the code that handles that, and makes it a lot easier to normalize your data and handle the transformation. So really it just depends on state of your current data and what other tools that you can implement to help speed up that process. So, again, there's a lot of tools out there to help with every single step of this process that all work really, really well together.
Great, nice. That's great advice.
All right, so kind of the next step is generating ROI through your data. So, you've chosen a solution, and I think that the next step is, what kind of information do you expose to your customers? I think the first and foremost is whatever the high-level insights are, because, you can't change what you don't measure, and I think everyone generally agrees upon that. So, whatever those high-level KPIs are, trying to figure out what those are for your customers across the board is, I think, going to be the most valuable thing. So talk to your customers beforehand, find out what the questions are that they're trying to answer. And I think a lot of times as you're talking to them, they may tell you what their key insights are, what their key metrics are, whatever KPIs you're looking for. But a lot of times I don't think that they fully understand what those KPIs are or what they could be. So helping them kind of uncover what a North Star metric for their data within your platform could be, and how they can affect that. So surfacing those very high-level key insights is going to be crucial to generating additional ROI. I think also as we talk about ROI, it's not just about the direct revenue. So Allbound, for instance, we noticed about a 30% lift in revenue from our channel insights. So that was both for new contracts and also for upsells to existing customers. So it's been really, really valuable for us, but it's also helped to, affect some of the non-direct ARR numbers that, of course, are going to increase ROI. So it was a much simpler platform. We didn't have to keep answering questions about how to use our built-in reports that we had created before. It was much more intuitive. So we spent less time, which increased our overall company operational efficiency. It decreased churn rates because now people had more access to data. And it also helps your customer success team identify areas for improvement and help our customers identify what's working, what's not, prove the ROI of our platform. So there's a lot of different sort of non-revenue driven lists to help generate to help increase that overall ROI. So I think that, go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to ask, do you have customers who are, who maybe initially didn't fully realize ROI? Maybe they need a little bit, whether it's training or enablement. Like, I'm assuming there was a mix of customers when you rolled this out. Some immediately get it, and maybe some took, a little bit longer too. Like, can you talk a little bit about that, sort of what the experience has been after you rolled this out?
Sure. So there were some customers that thought, okay, great, it's just a different way to visualize data. It was like the visual part of our reports builder that we had on previously. And some of it was because we didn't actually have the right metrics that they were looking to measure. So, we were able to take that feedback and say, hey, that's actually a great idea, and here's what we should focus on. So it's definitely been a phased approach. So some customers will get it right away, and other customers don't quite get yet that the true value of the channel insights. So, there's a lot of training and kind of coaching. I think that our job as product people is to make that super intuitive and to very clearly articulate those kind of next best actions and the insights that they should take. So that's really where we're moving our channel insights to kind of take it to the next level. So we've implemented the phase 1 approach, but the next phase approach is to augment that data, pull in more information than they even have within it using other business APIs, so we can backfill that information, and then ultimately leading them to a very clear delineation of here's the next best steps that you can take today for each of the various actors that are using our channel insights, whether it's a head of channel, a channel account manager, a partner manager at a single partner organization, so that everybody has the right information to take the right action depending on what their role is.
Got it. Thanks.
So, we kind of talked a little bit about augmenting that data. So I think one of the true powers of using business insights is that you get to tell a deeper story than people can even fully understand. So we're starting to explore how we can use some of these different business APIs, things like Clearbit to backfill information. So if the deal is registered, we can say, or even just on a single partner organization, to pull information back in and understand, okay, here's a partner that is loaded in the system, but what's their vertical, what's their revenue, how many number of employees do they have? So we can start doing some things like really advanced partner scoring, visualizing that within the Looker platform. So how do we take information from all these disparate systems and combine them into a single, this single pane of glass? Allbound has always been about being the middle layer in a technology stack, and Looker allows us to pull all that information in and then visualize it out, so you can start segmenting your data. So in Allbound, we have something we call dynamic groups, which is essentially a way to segment your individual users based on key criteria about their company, about their user information, or about specific actions they've taken in the system. So you can do a cohort analysis and say, hey, let me look at my platinum tier partners and compare them to my gold tier partners and see, what is the net effect of these people? What is the average time to activation? And if we're measuring the average time to activation, that's something that then they can actually focus on and change and say, gosh, in the last quarter, we were able to decrease our average activation time of a new partner by 25%. So I think that's really where the return on investment is going to be, is as people start using our channel insights platform on a daily basis to be able to answer these level of questions. So using all these business insights, I think Allbound has really been able to create a true competitive advantage. Competitive advantage, that's a weird word to say. So we're able to help our customers decrease the average partner activation time simply by measuring it and then taking action on that. Also, our goal is to be able to help them identify their ideal partner profile. That's kind of a future phase project that we're super excited about, but that kind of goes back into augmenting data on each of the individual partners from some other business APIs that we have a deeper understanding, and we can start comparing and saying, hey, here's your most successful partners. Now, what are the things that they have in common, and helping to expose the ideal partner profile that I think has just started to be talked about within the industry. We've also helped them be able to discover and drive activities that are going to lead to the best and most successful channel interactions. I kind of mentioned that earlier before, we've had a 30% increase in revenue, increased our win rate, decreased our churn rate. We've given our customer success team more tools. And it's been a really positive experience, and I think it's really changing our overall vision moving forward. So the business insights is changing our full strategy, because everything is about how do we pull data in to create this single pane of glass. So there's a lot of actions and activities that happen, outside of the platform, and your whole partner program is about what's outside of the four walls of your business. So it's super easy to understand what your direct sales team is doing, but to understand your indirect sales team and have that picture to who they are, what they're doing, where they are, and understand what's working and what's not. We also want to be able to expose to our channel account managers, for instance, that might be maybe you're at a big organization, you've got 20 different channel account managers, and they're managing 5,000 different partner organizations. We started talking to our customers and saying, how many actual partners are your channel account managers truly focusing on? And the answer was an average of 5 to 10. So you've got, maybe in a really big organization, you have 50 channel account managers, and they're managing 10 people each. So there's 500 of your 5,000 partners are actively being managed. But with Channel Insights, we can suddenly start exposing where they should focus their time and energy, and what they can do. So I think that this goes beyond just PRM. This is something that any platform can do in anything. I was using a platform, FreshBooks, that I used to use for my consulting business, where I did some web design and development work on the side for some old customers. And I was thinking about the impact of business insights within there as well, just from an invoicing standpoint, to be able to understand who are my customers, who pays me the most per hour, what's the overall, what's the best invoice, what are the actions that I should take, should I send follow-up emails, and they don't capitalize on any of their data at all. So I feel like, Josh, that might be a good selling opportunity for you guys. But I feel like they're really not maximizing and leveraging the data. I think as we move forward, data is going to be, that next wave of just SaaS business in general. It's great to understand, like, hey, here's what you've done at a very high level, but we don't just need simple reports anymore. We want to ask questions and find out, how can we be the best version of ourselves possible? Where do we focus our time? That's, probably our most limited resource. So if we can leverage the power of business insights, or, specifically Allbound's Channel Insights tool, and it can be more effective, hire less people, and make the right decisions, I think that's really game changing.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan. That was some great info for our attendees. Great presentation, and I jotted down that lead you just gave me too, so got a little bonus out of that one. So we've got a few minutes left. So before we wrap up the formal part of the presentation and go to Q&A, I'm just going to give a quick overview of Looker for those of you who might be new and not familiar with the platform. I'm probably going to go a little quicker through it than I normally would. But as a reminder, so if you've got questions, submit them in the Q&A panel, and we'll get to as many as we can after the overview. So let me jump in. I'm going to advance this out. So, I mean, it really starts with our mission of empowering people with the smarter use of data. And this has evolved over time to grow our network of companies that we're helping join us on this mission. We've got today 2,000 companies that are partnering with us to use data to make better decisions, drive better business outcomes, and just deliver better experiences for their customers. And I think what's really exciting is that these experiences are really going beyond traditional data analysis. They're going beyond what we think of as traditional BI. They're insights that are delivered really to people where they're already working. And when they need them, and in the right context, right? We hear that a lot, but that's really something that we're delivering on. And in fact, if you think about it, half of our customers are actually serving data to people outside of the tool. So what that means is we're finding people where they're working and really where they're making decisions, which is where you have impact. So Forrester, one of the leading industry analyst firms, calls these companies that are doing it well insight-driven companies. They're using data to drive growth and differentiate their products and services in the market. So, it's not just, data is not just something we analyze, but it's something that we think about infusing into everyday business processes to empower your employees, make them smarter, optimize operations, and in a lot of cases, drive new streams of revenue. So, obviously we're thinking about BI. We're thinking about things much broader than the traditional BI that I think we all know. I mentioned data experiences and kind of what do we mean by that? Really, the way we talk about it and think about it is it's any number of ways in which you can derive value from data. So it could be reducing costs, mitigating risk. It could be increased revenue or optimizing spend. It could be really through net new revenue streams around monetization of data, building data applications. So there's a few different flavors. I mean, the most I think familiar one to people is the modern BI use case sitting on top of the Looker data platform. Couple of examples: The Economist. So they're bringing together all their company's data to really establish a unified view of the customer. So they're looking at subscription line of business, to their print magazine, to digital advertising, to what they're doing online to create that cohesive view. Namely, is doing something where they're actually exposing their customers to reports and dashboards to better understand their staffing needs and trends and the like. The second is what we think of as integrated insights, because it goes far beyond just BI. And Ryan touched on this in a couple of his slides. It's not just about a pretty visualization and a dashboard. There's a lot of things that we can help organizations empower. So an example of that is Stripe. So they're arming their sales reps on customer calls with usage data that's right in Salesforce. So again, putting information in the place that they're working every day. And as a rep, obviously they're using Salesforce to work their opportunities. Moving along, data-driven workflows. SalesLoft and FuturePlay are a couple of examples. FuturePlay is one that there's no analysis being done. Really, they have an AI-powered bid bot that basically optimizes what they're spending on ads based on how they're doing. So there's no one on the other end doing any analysis or looking at insights. They're just taking action based on data that's changing as they're monitoring it real time. And then finally, custom applications. So we're seeing a broader number of customers build purpose-built applications, whether it's, as we've talked about for 45 minutes, Allbound doing this with channel insights, or again, end user organizations finding new ways to build applications both internally and externally. So a lot of different things sitting on top of the platform, a lot of customers having success. The main components of this, when you think about what makes Looker different and special, the first piece is our in-database architecture. We don't have a data storage layer, right? We are leveraging the power of whatever modern cloud MPP database that you're using. So it's really transforming the way we think about data, so we don't have to ETL it into a database. We're actually doing ELT. The second piece is our version-controlled semantic layer. So it's really, think of it as a centralized way of defining your business rules and defining your business. And the third is our APIs. It's giving builders of applications the tools they need to deliver those data experiences I talked about anywhere and to anyone. We were actually recognized, so just some good news to share. We were actually recognized this year as a challenger in the Gartner BI Magic Quadrant. So Ryan, too quick. Ryan mentioned the Gartner Magic Quadrant. If you go to our website, you can actually register for a free copy of this to hear what Gartner is saying about Looker and the market in general. I think it'd be a really interesting read. And then just a heads up about a new thought leadership series we've got starting in April, the first one being in New York City. We're calling it Beacon. Again, go to the website for more information on that. A lot of cities planned for this year. I'm sure there'll be one in a city near you, and a list of resources to get some more information on Looker, our solutions, our events, and the like. So we've got maybe we've got a couple questions here. I guess I'll pick one. So Ryan, maybe in a couple minutes, you mentioned a couple other vendors, but can you talk a little bit more about your current data stack beyond Looker?
Beyond Looker? Sure. So currently we're using a MySQL-powered Aurora database, which is basically a managed MySQL solution within AWS. We're doing all the ETL transformations ourselves right now, but might actually switch to a tool more like Fivetran to make it easier and faster to add in more data as we're starting to work with some of the different business APIs. We have all that in a read replica. So we take the data from our current database, we run it through our ETL process, and create a read replica so that any of the things going on within our channel insights doesn't impact the main product itself.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we are right at time. We'll bring this webinar to a close, and we'll send out the recording after. Thank you all again for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.